A surprising turn of events has taken place in Costa Rica's presidential election campaign in recent weeks. Earlier in the month, candidate Johnny Araya abruptly dropped out of the presidential race after polls indicated he was trailing opposition candidate Guillermo Solis by a wide margin. It's significant because Araya was the candidate for the current governing party. It reveals the extent of voter dissatisfaction right now in Costa Rica. It's also a reminder of the considerable challenges the new president will face, which include rising unemployment, high government debt, and widespread poverty. The presidential runoff takes place on April 6th. Correspondent Nitza Soledad Perez sat down with both candidates before Araya's withdrawal and asked them about some of the pressing concerns for Costa Rica.
Luis Guillermo Solis is a history professor and a former diplomat. As presidential candidate for the Citizens Action Party, Solis led in a 13-candidate field, taking 31% of the votes in the February 2nd election. The prevailing public view is that political corruption has reached unacceptable proportions.
We've put a lot of thought into our vote. We want change, and this is the result.
We've fallen into a corruption pattern. This is one of the most important issues. The management of resources has been very inefficient, and that is one of the things we have to change.
For the past 8 years, Costa Rica has been ruled by the National Liberation Party. Johnny Araya is the party's presidential candidate. He is a former mayor of San Jose, Costa Rica's capital, and up until February was the front runner in the election.
The electoral results show how the Costa Rican state has lost its legitimacy with the people, and it's lost legitimacy because it works badly, because in some cases there's been a lack of transparency.
And even more surprising than the February 2nd loss is that a month later, Araya announced his withdrawal from the race. Laura Chinchilla is the current president and member of the ruling party. Her approval rating was 9% last year, the lowest among 17 Latin American leaders. During her administration, Costa Rica has endured historically high unemployment rates.
Since I accepted the nomination of the National Liberation Party, I've raised a flag, a purpose of renewing leadership, renewing commitments and ideas, while at the same time recovering our historical roots. My party is 62 years old, and it emerged as a social democratic party, and I want us to reaffirm that social vocation.
As a result, Solis' lead has become huge. Mr. Solis, you were a former member of the National Liberation Party, the one that's been in power for the past 8 years, and it's deeply associated with corruption. Why should the electorate believe that you are different now?
Yeah, not only was I a member of the party, I was the Secretary General of that party, and I left the party 9 years ago, precisely because of ethical concerns and my repudiation of practices that Liberación Nacional had entrenched as part of its normal day-to-day activities.
One of the issues at stake in this next runoff is the future of the economic model that over the last 2 decades has produced a strong economic growth but has failed to reduce the poverty rate. This is the community of Los Angeles, about 20 minutes away from San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. All its residents have been presented with an order of eviction. Their houses have caught on fire twice. Not hard to imagine. Given the electrical power cables hanging everywhere, walking by them feels like a tragedy is waiting to happen.
It's hard to remember. It's hard because there's nothing tougher than seeing the little that you have being consumed by fire, and you feel helpless while the fire quickly destroys everything. What you can do is pray to God and get out whatever you can, but then you become homeless. People cry. Once the fire is out, everything looks like a desert.
The leader of this small community, Isidro Hidalgo, has fought for a better future for the 50 families living here. Families that invaded this public land and created their own space with any materials they could gather, including the electrical grid. For the residents of this community, finding work is like finding a needle in a haystack. The unemployment rate is at 9%. The poverty level is at 20%, the lowest in Central America. It's a rate that has stayed the same for the past 20 years in a country that has experienced an average economic growth of 4%.
Employment stopped being a goal for the government. They were determined to show high growth numbers by having a non-interventionist policy, hoping that all sectors, including employment, were to be saved by the market.
But the market did not give this family a solution. Milena Mendez, her husband, and 4 kids live in this space. He is a laid-off construction worker that every now and then works part-time in a car junkyard. Milena stays home taking care of their children, raising them however she can, entertaining them with whatever she finds.
I would work doing whatever I had to do in order to feed my children.
This 11-year-old has also been waiting for an answer to an unfulfilled promise. John Anthony Cruz had the opportunity to meet President Chinchilla at a soccer game. He only had one thing on his mind, and it was not soccer.
I said, Chinchilla, what's up with the house issue? She said, I will get you out of here as soon as possible.
That conversation took place in 2011. At his young age, John Anthony already has a message for the 2 presidential contenders.
We don't want any more empty promises. They said they were going to help us with the cables, that they were going to fix our homes. But after we go and vote for them, we get nothing.
I asked Solis how he plans to address Jan's skepticism. That kid told me, you know what, they all come here and they all promise.
Promise and they don't.
So why should they believe you?
There's no reason why they should. This is one of the very large challenges we have, to bring back trust and confidence in politics, in democratic institutions, and in the word that's promised. We have to take care of employment. I find employment to be the only real solution, because even when I'm conscientious of the fact that we will have to provide special resources to the extreme poverty population, in other words, you have to give them whatever they need. There's no way you can bring them to a normal state of productivity simply by providing a job.
Johnny Araya, who is a trained agricultural engineer, had this to add.
We have developed a project called A Caring Costa Rica to address extreme poverty. For the rest of the poor population, we have developed a proposal with various initiatives to stimulate new activities, especially in the traditional sector of the economy that's been very neglected.
By law, Araya's name must remain on the April 6th ballot for the final vote, even though his political prospects are dim. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, another sun sets. And its leader, Isidro Hidalgo, still living in the same makeshift home and disgruntled by his country's politics, holds a breath of hope.
I will vote for democracy, for the hope that one day my children and my grandchildren have a better tomorrow.
Costa Rica is the second of 7 presidential elections occurring in Latin American countries this year. El Salvador held the first election on March 9th. After Costa Rica's April 6th runoff, the next presidential elections will be held in Panama on May 4th and in Colombia on May 25th. The remaining 3 will take place after September.